A mansion in Chiang Mai, a powerful tycoon, and two women trapped in his shadow, until one night, everything changed. A grand mansion stood on the hillside of Chiang Mai. It looked like something out of a fairy tale. Every morning, sunlight streamed through sheer curtains, illuminating ivory-white walls, making everything seem warm and peaceful. But beneath this calmness lay a darkness no one could have imagined. Namfon, a young woman in her early 20s who had just graduated from university, walked across the marble floors of the mansion. This was the home of Kun Chan, an elderly tycoon, owner of tea plantations and businesses across northern Thailand. Everyone knew of his immense wealth, yet strangely, he had neither a wife nor any public heir. 5 months earlier, Namfon's mother, Sri, age 43, had been hired to work as a maid in this mansion. Soon after, Namfon came to visit her mother, and it was then she first met Kun Chan in the lavish living room. The air was heavy with the scent of expensive cologne, mixed faintly with tea leaves. Kun Chan was a man of few words, but his gaze was penetrating. His soft, measured voice was disarming. Despite being in his 60s, he looked remarkably well, keeping his figure and presence intact. Something in his eyes made Namfon uneasy, though she could not explain why. The strange silence. As weeks passed, her mother's behavior began to change. Sri grew quieter, more fragile, and avoided Namfon's eyes whenever her daughter asked about Kun Chan. She would always change the subject abruptly. One night, Namfon awoke to strange noises from the hall below. It sounded like two people whispering, followed by a woman's laughter and then a sigh of pain. Curious and unsettled, she crept downstairs, hiding behind thick curtains. Peeking through a slit, her heart stopped at what she saw. Her mother, her own mother, was leaning against the chest of Kun Chan. His hands caressed her back gently as he whispered something that made her smile faintly through tears. The intimacy was undeniable. It was not the relationship of employer and maid. It was deeper, far more troubling. Namfon hurried back to her room, heart pounding, her mind consumed with shock, anger, confusion, and an emotion she could not name, jealousy. Forbidden closeness. From that night, she watched them carefully. She noticed subtle gestures, fleeting glances, attempts to conceal something. But most disturbing was the way Kun Chan began looking at her. It was not the gaze of an old man at his maid's daughter. It was different, hiding something unspoken, dangerous. One stormy evening, Namfon stood on the balcony when he appeared, holding an umbrella. He smiled softly. "You'll catch a cold out here," he said. She stepped back, but he moved closer. The faint cologne on his clothes mixed with the scent of rain. Then he whispered, "You have your mother's eyes when she was young." Namfon's heart raced. She knew what was about to happen, and yet she was paralyzed, unable to flee. He touched her damp hair gently. "In the rain, you look even lovelier." Her body froze, her mind spiraled, and though every instinct screamed to run, her legs refused to move. 2 pregnancies. From then, Kun Chan grew bolder. He brought her gifts, snacks, books she liked, and sometimes called her to the living room at night, alone. Meanwhile, her mother began suffering nausea and weakness. A hospital visit confirmed what Sri feared. She was pregnant at 43. Namfon didn't need to ask who the father was. Everything pointed to Kun Chan. But only 2 weeks later, Namfon herself began feeling sick in the mornings. A pregnancy test confirmed it. 2 red lines. She too was pregnant with the same man's child. The weight of it crushed her. The confrontation. One night, descending the stairs, she found him drinking wine alone in the dim living room. Without looking at her, he said, "I know about you and your mother." She froze, unable to respond. He stood, placed his glass aside, and walked toward her, eyes calm but burning. "It may sound wrong, but you know it's no coincidence. Your mother knew, you knew, and still you stayed." Namfon's voice shook. "What do we do now? I'm pregnant. She's pregnant. Do we keep them?" He gripped her hand firmly. His expression was cold. "Every child of mine will remain under my watch. I will take care of all of you. Do not worry about the future, because your future already belongs to me. The words wrapped around her like chains. Collapse of secrets. Soon, her mother discovered the truth. She found Namfon's hidden pregnancy test. Tears flowed as she realized her daughter now carried the same burden. At breakfast, the silence was suffocating. Then Kunchan announced with chilling calm, "I've signed the documents. Both children will inherit equally." Sri slammed her spoon down. "You monster. You destroyed us both." But he remained indifferent, almost proud. "I am only building my dynasty with the best women I choose." Namfon turned away, unable to look at either of them. Inside her, anger began to grow. The plan. That night, Sri whispered to her daughter, "We are not victims anymore. Understand?" Together, they began secretly gathering evidence, CCTV footage, voice recordings, old files of his hidden affairs with maids and even younger girls. They put everything onto a small flash drive. Then they went to the police. The fall of the tycoon. The scandal exploded across newspapers and television. Prominent businessmen implicated in sexual abuse and criminal network. Kunchan was arrested at the airport, attempting to flee. His empire crumbled. His shadowy connections, even among politicians and businessmen, were exposed. Namfon and her mother, though scarred, had brought him down. A new beginning. Months later, the mansion was sold. Namfon and Sri moved to a quiet coastal town, opening a small bakery. Their children grew strong within them. But one night, Namfon received a letter from his lawyer. "Your child is mine. You cannot escape my shadow." Fear tried to return, but she no longer trembled. She reached out to survivors like her, gathering stories of his vast network. And she vowed this was no ending. It was a beginning of a larger fight. For justice. For herself. For her mother. And for every woman silenced by men like him. The bakery by the sea was quiet that evening. The smell of fresh bread lingered in the air, but Namfon could hardly taste or smell anything. She sat at a wooden table under the soft glow of a lamp, the letter from the lawyer trembling in her hands. "Your child is mine. You cannot escape my shadow." The words seemed to whisper from the paper itself, sinking into her chest like ice. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms, fighting back tears. This was not just a message. It was a reminder that even behind prison walls, Kunchan's influence still stretched like a shadow over her life. But unlike before, Namfon no longer felt helpless. She had already torn down the mask of the powerful man once. She and her mother had brought him to his knees. And yet, she knew his empire was bigger than any single arrest. That night, she picked up the phone and called someone she had long been afraid to contact. And the former assistant of Kunchan who had disappeared years earlier. When it answered, her voice was brittle. "Namfon, I didn't think I'd ever hear from you." "I need to know everything," Namfon whispered, "before he does to me what he did to you." A long silence, then a sigh. "You don't understand, Namfon. The case you reported. It was only the surface. He wasn't just a man. He was part of a network. A machine that feeds on fear and silence. If you fight this, you won't just be fighting him. You'll be fighting all of them." Namfon swallowed hard, her hand resting on her belly. "Then I won't fight for myself. I'll fight for my child, for every woman he destroyed." In documentary fashion, we must step back. Kunchan was not merely a businessman. He represented a pattern seen across the world. Men who build empires not only with money, but with control, secrecy, and fear. Files uncovered later showed that Kunchan's wealth did not come solely from tea plantations. There were offshore accounts, shell companies, and coded transactions linked to traffickers, corrupt officials, and shadowy middlemen. Behind his charming public face was an underground empire that thrived on silence. Women were not companions. They were trophies, pawns in a game of dominance. And now, for the first time, one of his pawns had broken free. While Namfon gathered courage, her mother Sri was battling her own storm. Pregnancy at 43 was difficult. Her body weakened, yet her mind sharpened. She had once been silent, once complicit by staying. But now she realized silence was the deadliest prison of all. One night, Sitting across from her daughter, Shri finally confessed through trembling lips. I should have protected you. Instead, I let you fall into the same trap. I let him convince me that love was obedience. Namfon reached across the table, clutching her mother's hands. No, May, you gave me strength. You showed me how to fight back. We survived, and that means we still have a choice. Together, mother and daughter began their next battle. They contacted journalists, women's rights groups, and investigators specializing in organized crime. The evidence they had already provided was enough to imprison Kunchan, but the real power lay in exposing the entire network. Flash drives, documents, secret recordings. All were shared quietly with trusted allies, and slowly, the puzzle began to reveal itself. Names of officials, businessmen, and foreign partners emerged, all tied to the same web of silence. Months later, headlines exploded once again. This time, they weren't just about Kunchan. International criminal network exposed. Politicians and tycoons implicated. The world watched as men once thought untouchable were led away in handcuffs. What began with the courage of one maid and her daughter in Chiang Mai had grown into a storm that swept across borders. Inside the prison, Kunchan received the news. For the first time, his calm mask cracked. His empire was crumbling, not from the hands of rivals, but from the voices of women he thought powerless. The new dawn, back in their small seaside town, Namfon stood outside the bakery, her child cradled in her arms. Her mother rocked another infant gently nearby. 2 lives, born of darkness, but now wrapped in light. The wind carried the salty air of the sea, and for the first time in years, Namfon felt she could breathe. She whispered to her baby, "You will never live in his shadow. You will live in the light we fought for." Her mother placed a hand on her shoulder. Together, they smiled through tears. This was not just the story of one family. It was a story of silence turned into resistance, of fear transformed into strength. It showed how even the most powerful can fall when truth is spoken. Namfon and Shri were not merely survivors. They were symbols of resilience. And as the waves crashed against the shore, their fight became a message to the world. No shadow, no empire, no man is too strong to be brought down by the courage of those who refuse to be silent. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe silence is the greatest weapon of power? Or is it courage that breaks the chains? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Zimo Voice for more stories that reveal the hidden truths behind closed doors.